Welcome to LFC Transfer HUB. Arne's slot told Liverpool have clear transfer priority, and it's not Alexander Isak. Liverpool have won their first 2 games in their title defense campaign, but some fans in the Liverpool Echo's comments section say that the manner of those victories proves that they still have one very important piece of business to do before transfer deadline day. And it's not Alexander Isak. The defense that has 4 goals against, so far, is the biggest area of concern for fans and pundits, with both of Liverpool's opponents being allowed to level the scoreline before late efforts secured the wins. The other 2 teams who have 6 points after 2 games, Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur, have a clean sheet for both games. There has been uncertainty over the longer-term future of Liverpool's centre-backs. After the sale of Jarell Quansah to Bayer Leverkusen earlier in the window, leaving Virgil van Dijk, Joe Gomez, and a particularly large question mark over Ibrahima Konate. Konate is out of contract next year and has a big admirer in the form of Real Madrid. And some fear a repeat of the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation if Liverpool can't re-sign or replace the centre-back soon. Some say that Liverpool must replace Konate, or at least by his successor, off the back of the win over Newcastle United. Reader Bygan says, "As much as I would love Isak at Liverpool, our biggest priority is a centre-back, and the reason is Konate, who has struggled." Commenter Tonolf writes, "Liverpool need a top centre-back, as Konate was absolutely terrible." Kflee9 says, "Signing Isak and a centre-back like Mark Guéhi are crucial, if LFC are serious about defending their Premier League title." Thera Jason writes, "From the team's first 2 matches, it's evidently obvious we require composed, steady, quality, commanding readers of the game in our defense. We have been linked with Guéhi the whole of this summer. However, Palace's board seems to be split on Guéhi leaving. While I am of the opinion that we should make another attempt to prize him away from Selhurst Park, we should also seriously explore the option of Nathan Collins from Brentford." Darwinism says, "We need a CB, it doesn't have to be Guéhi. Guéhi is probably an upgrade on Quansah. I don't think he's as good as VVD or Konate, though." Side note, Quansah was Bayer Leverkusen's best player on his debut. 7 clearances and a goal. Not sure how I feel about that. Happy for him, but also mildly annoyed. Johnny1922 says, "Forget getting Isak. We need defenders and fast. That was awful." Red Jock agrees. "Liverpool should end all interest in Isak. We need a CB, and that should be the focus, as Isak will not be a Liverpool player this season." Klopp's disciple writes, "Slot seems to be relaxed about our centre-back situation, while the rest of us are not so confident in the current squad alternatives. Alexander Isak transfer latest as Newcastle United attempt fails with Liverpool waiting." Alexander Isak remains intent on moving to Liverpool before next Monday's transfer deadline, despite efforts from Newcastle United's owners to persuade the striker to stay. Ahead of Monday's Premier League meeting between the 2 clubs, Isak was visited at his home by a delegation from the Public Investment Fund, including club chairman Yasser Al-Rumayyan and Newcastle co-owner Jamie Rubin. And multiple reports in the Northeast have now stated attempts to negotiate a deal for the Sweden international to stay at St. James Park have failed, with the player continuing to train away from the Newcastle first-team squad and determined to leave for Anfield. Liverpool saw a British record £110 million offer rejected by Newcastle at the start of the month and subsequently decided not to make an improved bid unless given encouragement by the Magpies. Having been vehement Isak wasn't for sale this summer, Newcastle released a statement last week that intimated they would be open to a departure if certain conditions are met, which are understood to be their signing 2 more forwards and receiving an offer in the region of £150 million for Isak. Newcastle continue to chase Brentford's Jon Wissa and are in talks with Wolves over a move for Jorgen Stan Larsen, having had an initial £50 million offer rejected. They also have an interest in Nicholas Jackson, who has been deemed surplus to requirements at Chelsea. Isak hasn't featured for Newcastle since the end of last season, having made it clear he wanted to leave with Liverpool his preferred next destination. He was absent as the Reds earned a dramatic 3-2 win on Tyneside and won't feature in Newcastle's game at Leeds United on Saturday. Liverpool remain interested in Isak, with the imminent transfer deadline meaning Newcastle will soon have to make a final call on whether to hold further talks with the Reds or face the uneasy prospect of reintegrating a player who last week claimed to have lost trust in the club due to broken promises. Rio Ngumaha admits point to prove at Liverpool'S training ground message explained. Rio Ngumaha has revealed the advice given to him by the coaching staff at Liverpool that helped him become a Reds record breaker. Ngumaha became the youngest goalscorer in the club's history when he stepped off the bench to net a dramatic injury time winner and earn a 3-2 Premier League triumph at Newcastle United on Monday evening. The winger, who only turned 17 on Friday, had been introduced for his top-flight debut just 4 minutes earlier, with Liverpool having thrown away a 2-goal lead against their 10-man hosts. Ngumaha's moment came when he arrived unmarked at the far post to convert a low cross from Mohamed Salah that had been dummied into his path by Dominik Szoboszlai. And the teenager explained, "Normally, last season especially, the academy coaches and the first-team coaches are always saying, 'Make the back post, make the back post.' The fact that I made the back post is just crazy. When I saw it with Mo and then Dom putting it through his legs, I was like 1v1 and I just smashed it. I think Dom just knew I was there. He said to me in the changing rooms, 'I just hoped you were there.' I backed myself to score. It was just crazy. The fans, I heard them screaming my name, and that's a sensational moment, I would say. But you can't get too carried away with all the noise, because at the end of the day I probably do that finish 100 times on the training ground, so it's no different with the fans here. But obviously the fans backing you here, it's just crazy." Recalling the moment he was given the call from Liverpool boss Arne, Ngumaha added, "It was crazy. He looked at me and pointed at me and said, 'Get ready. You just have to come on and make an impact,' and luckily I did that. It was just a proud moment. I'm buzzing. I'm so happy to score, especially the winner. A good moment. A special feeling. I'm definitely happy." Ngumaha, an arrival from Chelsea 12 months ago, has already raced through the academy ranks and made his senior debut in the FA Cup win over Accrington Stanley back in January before impressing during pre-season. But the youngster knows he has a long way to go before establishing himself as a regular in the first-team squad. "I'm 16, but I don't want my age to show that I can't play with the older players," he said to Liverpool'S.com. "I want to prove a point that I can play with not just people my age but many ages above. There are people at the club who are always helping me, and I'm always learning and improving, so I can't complain. I'm learning from them and training with them every day. You learn so many things, such as how professional they are and what they have done to reach the top level. I'm learning from them every day. It's special. I just have to keep going. I hope it's the first of many goals, but it's back to training tomorrow. I have to prove once again to the manager what I can do." Arne fumes at Simon Hooper as X-rated Alexander Isak and Liverpool message sent. Liverpool continued the new Premier League season with a dramatic victory against Newcastle United on Monday evening. The Reds were 2 goals ahead through Ryan Gravenberch and Hugo Ekitike against their 10-man hosts, but were subsequently pegged back by efforts from Bruno Guimaraes and William Osula. Substitute Rio Ngumaha then netted on his Premier League in the 10th minute of injury time to become the youngest scorer in Liverpool's history and ensure a hard-earned 3 points. But there was plenty that went unnoticed or under the radar during the 90 minutes, and a bit more. At St. James Park, Slot goes missing. This wasn't a game for the faint-hearted, and it didn't take long for matters to become rather heated on the touchline. And in the first half, Slot had significant reason to be grumpy. One such instance saw him turn away from the action and rant animatedly to nobody in particular after Dominik Szoboszlai became one of many Liverpool players to concede a soft free kick. Mind you, Slot was nowhere to be seen when Ekitike scored the visitors' second, having not returned to the dugout from the tunnel after halftime. "Bit quicker next time, Arne." Tyndall the Terror. The key flashpoint in a game of many was the red card for Anthony Gordon, dismissed for an unwise lunge on Virgil van Dijk. Replays suggested referee Simon Hooper eventually made the correct decision. But the home fans who could see the incident later played on the screen inside the stadium took a very different view, with their audible outrage increasing as a consequence. And pantomime villain Jason Tyndall, the Newcastle assistant boss, made a point of waiting until only the match officials remained on the pitch at the end of the first half, and then loitered at the entrance of the tunnel as they departed. Wonder what he was keen to talk about. Alex Party. Mercifully, the whirlwind of action on the field meant Alexander Isak was the great unspoken for much of the game. Well, until Liverpool went 2 goals ahead, that is. It was then that the travelling Reds declared Isak was correct in wanting to leave Tyneside for Merseyside and later chanted, "Hand him over, Newcastle." That was all the excuse the home fans required to break their silence. It's speaking volumes when they delivered a sweary response suggesting the striker is somewhat greedy, presumably for initially seeking an improved contract. Don't forget, this is a player Newcastle value at £150 million. Murphy class. It wasn't all rancor and rants, though, and there were a couple of wholesome moments at the start of either half at St. James Park. Before the game, home substitute Jacob Murphy made a point of playing a series of individual 1-2s with each match mascot and giving them applause and a thumbs up for the accuracy of their return pass. And Reds sub Joe Gomez could be spotted embracing fellow England international Kieran Trippier as he returned to the dugout ahead of the second half. Friends.